Well, good afternoon. My name is Adam Olsen. I am the MLA for Saanich North and the Islands. I couldn't tell you if we're actually live right now because, as I promised a couple of weeks ago, we were going to get up on Switcher Studio. Well, we are on Switcher Studio. It says we are live. It says we are recording. It says all of these things, and I see it on the computer. We are live. My name's Adam Olsen. I'm the MLA. In this beautiful place, Saanich North, the Saanich Peninsula, and the Southern Gulf Islands. With me today is Ryan Clayton, the amazing Ryan Clayton.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for stepping in today.
It's a pleasure.
We sent Aldous away today.
Yeah.
Well, he went away.
Yeah, he finally decided he needed a break, which that man does not take breaks. So
That's true.
I think we all agree he deserves a rest.
I have possibly the best constituency. I think probably 86 other MLAs will give their kudos to their constituency team. Unfortunately for them, I have the best constituency team. Ryan works the reception, and you had 4,000. First, let's get to this.
Okay.
Let's get to this. So let's welcome everyone to the Public Circle Live. This is the public engagement outreach arm, our weekly show every Friday at 4:30 here on Facebook, where we get together and have a conversation about the week that was in BC politics. We also answer a few questions. I see my beautiful, loving wife, Emily, is on. She's saying hello to us.
Hi, Emily.
My sister, Heather. This is a family show, apparently. Welcome, family.
Where's my dad?
I don't know where your dad is.
Tell him he has to start watching.
Nonetheless, we've got some new technology. It's a lot of fun, and we had a full week in politics. I invite you to show us a little bit of love. Give us hit the like button, hit the heart button, and because this is BC politics, I'm certain that you probably want to use that frustration, the anger button, the sadness button as well. But share us around with your friends list. We want to be accessible to all the people that live in this riding and beyond. And so leave a comment. We'll get to some questions a little later on. You can get a hold of us. You can always get a hold of us, adam.olsen.mla@ledge.bc.ca. You can call us at 250-655-5600. It will be Ryan.
You'll hear my voice.
That's right, who will respond. And respond you did.
Yes.
This week.
Yes. Oh, goodness.
So what was the big issue?
The big issue is the ongoing logging of the old-growth forests, and specifically on North Vancouver Island.
Yeah, well, South Vancouver Island, West Vancouver Island, the Walbran, the Namint Valley came to our attention this week because of a very, very smart campaign, one which uses a lot of visuals, a lot of beautiful pictures to show the devastation in the old-growth forests.
Yeah, I actually saw it on social media before I saw the emails that were coming in. So
That's right.
Was aware of it coming in.
Yeah, Ancient Forest Alliance has been capturing the visuals of the devastation of yet another old-growth forest. How many emails?
So overall, because we received many recently, we've also received lots going back right since you first got elected. And so sum total, we've received over 4,000 emails from individuals. And then if you start counting in, follow-ups and response and new comments, we've received around 5,000 emails.
And I did a Facebook Live video from Galliano after talking with a friend of mine, TJ Watt, a friend of all of us actually, and that video has about 5,500 views, all organic, no organic, no boost on that. It's all organic views.
Yeah.
The fact of the matter is that people in this province still love big trees. No wonder why. They are another iconic symbol of who we are in British Columbia with our large old growth, big old trees. We saw the government respond to that email campaign, and summarize what that email response was.
Yeah, so the government identified some of the work that they've been doing just in terms of old growth forests. So some of it was they identified the protection of the Great Bear Rainforest.
Good. Yeah.
Which
they should be congratulated for.
Yeah, that was a positive step. They identified some of just the policies that are in place right now, the practices that forestry companies need to adhere to. So basically explaining what the status quo is. And then they talked just a bit about values-based statements about how important these old-growth forests are, not just in terms of they process carbon, but also just people travel from all over the world to see our majestic old-growth forests. And so they're important for tourism, they're important for the local economy, the wildlife. So they laid out kind of their values when they approached this issue.
Unfortunately, I think I can say this, and I will say this. Unfortunately, we're not protecting our old growth forest. They use a lot of statistics in their email to talk about how much old growth is being protected. And I think that part of it, there's another email right there that comes in just organically about old growth, but the numbers are skewed. And in talking about the critics to that email, talking to the critics of that email, the numbers are skewed. They're including a lot of small but very old trees, no question. They're including trees that are already protected by some other level of protection. They're talking about small trees in marshy, boggy areas or high up the mountains, in snow-covered areas. All of those trees are being added into, from my understanding, going to be added into these numbers to say that we're still protecting vast swaths of old growth. The fact of the matter is the big old trees, the ones that really capture your attention, and especially the big old trees here on Vancouver Island, well, they're being devastated. And so it's unfortunate to see the ministry deflect and skew the numbers, skew the statistics to say that, we've all seen, well, maybe we haven't all seen, and I'll share when I get a hold of it, the time lapse of what the forest has looked like on Vancouver Island as we've carved it away, and especially the old growth. The fact of the matter is the big old trees, 75% of the old growth on Vancouver Island, gone. 90% of the old growth in the valley bottoms, the really highly productive, highly valuable valley bottom old growth, is gone. So it's important that when we're communicating directly, that we're also speaking about what is actually happening on the ground and not trying to deflect. The reality is we've got a lot of work to do, and we need a government. And frankly, this government has been no different than the last government on protecting the status quo of forestry industry in our province. I'll just say it. We've got a lot of work to do. We got to protect the big trees. We got to become more productive. We have to have more productive second growth logging. We have got to give this very serious consideration to First Nations interests on this, and certainly providing economic development to First Nations outside of logging old growth, which is currently seems to be the direction of the government. Here, log this old growth. Now it's First Nations that are doing it. There are plenty of, as you pointed out, tourism, outdoor. There's a lot of other business opportunities. So, look, I'll just say it again. Clearly, the people this week responded. Yeah. Clearly, they respond every week to old growth. I'll continue to talk about it as the critic for Forest Lands and Natural Resource Operations. I wanted to acknowledge that I and we as a government have a lot of work to do, a ton of work to do, and we cannot continue to devastate our old growth forests, and we cannot continue to deflect. Anything else?
Yeah, I'd say I really appreciate a lot of your comments, because I did grow up, forestry put food on my table as a kid, so it's an industry that's very important to me, and I think you very clearly laid out the protection of the old growth forest can go side to side with a sustainable and vibrant forestry industry, and that's something that I appreciate, because that's my family. It still puts food on my family's table. So
yeah, it's not. It doesn't have to be one or the other. We don't have to devastate big trees. I mean, we don't have to turn old growth Douglas firs into 2x4s. We don't. No. And we don't have to be shipping out so much of our fiber raw either, so that others can process it. We've got processing facilities in British Columbia that could be taking those trees and could be processing them here and adding value to them. And it frankly is quite frustrating to see that the status quo is just being protected here, and that there isn't another vision, another more positive long-term vision. We get so caught up in short-term decision making and short-term discussions in government. We need to start thinking about the long term. We got to start thinking about intergenerational equity.
Yeah.
So anything else on it? You've responded to all the people that have emailed us.
Yeah. So because the sign up form was one where people entered their email, if people entered their email incorrectly, it bounced back. So I did get a few bounce back. So if you didn't get a response, feel free to send another email. Just say, hey, I sent this email, I didn't get a response. It's possible that that's what happened. The form was filled out and there was a typo. So if anyone didn't get a response, I apologize. Feel free to send another email. I'll respond and make sure that you get a response from us.
And if you have any questions on this, any comments on this, drop a comment in below. If you're watching in the comment section below. If you're watching this live, that'd be great if you did it. If you dropped one in now. If you're watching a rebroadcast of this, email us or drop, and actually that's a good point. Let's throw the email back up. Even leave a comment in the rebroadcast. It'll be posted to YouTube later. So we have a couple of other topics this week. So transportation.
Yeah. So
Southern Gulf Islands. Southern Vancouver Island.
Yeah, very specifically. So some people might have followed the news where a truck flipped over on the Malahat Highway. It ended up closing it from the early morning right up until 1 a.m. Yeah. So it was closed the entire day. I had immediate flashbacks because I actually used to commute between Victoria and Duncan every single day. And so for me, it was like, I know what it feels like to find out that the Malahat is closed and you can't get to work or you can't get home. It ended up the ferry to Brentwood Bay ended up having a lineup.
So this is what I want to talk about.
Yeah. Our colleague Sonia Firstino was caught in the line.
Was she?
Yeah, she was there. There was, in fact, a great little bit on Twitter. Apparently, she started hosting a mini town hall
on
with
Twitter.
With the people waiting.
Was she caught on the Central Saanich side?
I believe she was on the Mill Bay side.
Oh.
And so she answered
on her side
constituent questions, and so I think she handled it very well. But so that ended up happening, and it blockaded one of the major routes to the southern Vancouver Island.
I think what people don't maybe know is that Sonia is on the east side of the Saanich Inlet, and I'm on the west side of the Saanich Inlet, and I'm on the east side. Essentially, Sonia and I have the Saanich Inlet completely surrounded.
Yep.
Because I'm on the Brentwood Bay side of it. We grew up on Sartlip, just up the road, one road over from Verdier, which is where that ferry is, and it was like the first time in months that I've had a morning that I didn't have any meetings and I didn't have to be anywhere. So I stayed home, right? I just stayed home. Then I went up to the store and got in the car, and the roundabout at Verdier and West Saanich was jam-packed with people. Cars lined up all the way down West Saanich south towards Keating. And for those of you who know Brentwood know that is one really long ferry lineup for a ferry that takes like 18 cars or something. I mean, it's like many sailing waits. I think it's a full hour turnaround. And so it just, I think, highlights a challenge that we have, how vulnerable we are. How vulnerable we are to an accident, that choke point that is the Malahat, that my colleague Sonia Firstnow represents. But that's a choke point.
Yeah.
And it's a substantive challenge for us in terms of Vancouver Island and economic, social issues that are raised on it. Now you drove that on a regular basis. How did you feel about that drive?
I mean, it's a beautiful drive. I enjoyed it every morning because I would get to see this beautiful views, but it's narrow, and there's really not much you can do about that. Like it's almost, at points it's one side is a straight drop down into the inlet, the other side is mountain. So there's there's limits to what you can actually do with the Malahat, and so they improve it regularly. They try to do what they can, but having driven it and having seen that route, having seen accidents regularly on that route, because it is very steep and people don't always look where they're going. In the winter, it can just be impossible to navigate if you don't have chains on your tires. It's a challenge. It's having that be our one route to get up island. It can be really difficult, and there were days I had to miss work because there was too much ice, or there was an accident, or something would block me from getting up there, and that was, you kind of expected that would happen, which is not something you want to say about one of our major transportation routes.
Yeah, the major transportation route. We learned this week that, or we heard this week that the Premier doesn't consider the future of the ENN rail line, which would get commuters from mid-north to mid-Vancouver Island down into the capital region.
Yeah, get some cars off the route.
Not considering that as an option, perhaps maybe a busway. Busways work. But busways definitely work. You just have to ask. You just have to ask. Ottawa, who's created a busway. It worked very well when I was there. So it works fine, but it doesn't deal with the Malahat piece. It's going to be Langford to Victoria. The Mill Bay Ferry, Brentwood Bay Ferry. We've talked about this. It's only it's useful. It can help be part of the relief. But with a ferry that only has 18 and a ferry system that doesn't have the capacity to throw another ferry on, in a time like that, well, that presents an issue. I think that probably the retailers in Brentwood were pretty happy. I'm going to say they are happy that there was an accident, but they're happy for the extra business and the attention to Brentwood. Yeah. By the way, Brentwood's a wonderful place. Come visit us. Don't just come there to escape to the ferry. Come and visit us in Brentwood Bay.
That's true.
The businesses in Brentwood. Stop and grab a coffee at the Brentwood Emporium. The Brentwood Lodge is a phenomenal place to come and visit. It's got an amazing spa. Come check us out. Pitch for the local business.
Yep.
Did you get that?
I
just pitched the local business.
That was a very good pitch.
Anyway, but it highlights the fact that we need other options. And one of the areas that I'm actually quite excited about, but I think that we need to explore much more deeply than we have, and that is a passenger ferry service further north on the Saanich Peninsula, across to Couch and Bay, Mill Bay. We need and we could, I think, provide some of the housing, business development. I think that connectivity would be greatly appreciated by commuters who spend a lot of time locked up in their car on the Malahat. Might be able to come over. People who work in Sidney might be able to lessen their travel times, might find a housing market in the Cowichan Valley that might be appealing to them, that kind of lifestyle. So to me, one of the things that we've been looking at and that I'm really hoping that we can advance, and I know that there's some interest out there, is some kind of commuter passenger ferry service across the Saanich Inlet. As well. That's been explored, and it's been very public that it's been explored for the Southern Gulf Islands. But I think we got to stop thinking of the only transportation is a single occupant vehicle that's going to get me to where I want to be, and it's uber convenient, but it's also increasing the uber convenient. Yeah. Interesting. You got that. I didn't even mean to do that. Yeah. It's convenient, but it also produces congestion, stress, increased or decreases in quality of life. All these things are a big challenge. And I could talk, in fact I will talk another day about the congestion and the insanity that is driving downtown Victoria. I since having this job for the last year, it really is kind of crazy driving downtown. Now I have a Leaf, so I'm not emitting anymore, but I am part of the single occupant.
Yeah,
problem.
Still part of the congestion.
We have to figure out transit on that. I mean, we had this conversation in our office here. When was that?
A month or so ago.
2 months ago. We need to figure out transit options on the peninsula, and a ferry transit, increasing the transit opportunities on the peninsula will help, I think, alleviate, well, definitely, I don't think, it will definitely help alleviate the congestion.
Yeah, especially I used to live in Vancouver, and having experienced the SkyTrain bus, you can get pretty much anywhere in the Lower Mainland without needing a car. I didn't have a car when I lived there, and then I transited here for a long time, but eventually I needed a vehicle because I was going to places that weren't accessible by transit, or transit was infrequent, and I got a cheap, small, doesn't use very much gas car, but I needed it. It was a part of the, I'd like to go up island. Whereas in Vancouver, like I could leave from my house, go all the way to Vancouver, downtown Vancouver, without once getting behind the wheel of a car. I can travel, through the ferries, through the transit. If I want to go to any part of the Lower Mainland right now, I can transit there from here.
Right.
So it's if we can really improve our transit infrastructure and in different ways to the areas that people want to go, I'd happily leave my car behind.
So Lindy Lou says turning the Verde ferry lineup into a bridge is not an okay option. As a lifelong resident in Brentwood Bay, I would agree that a bridge, just personally, a bridge is not the correct option across the Saanich Inlet. I don't know that the number of trips would I don't know that there could be an economic or even an environment. Look, environmental, social, and there's not a case to be made for a bridge, I don't think, going across. And again, bridges, like we know what happens when we build more roads and more road infrastructure. What happens?
More cars.
More cars. It's a fascinating thing. You build more space for cars and people will fill it. And I think what we need to start doing is looking at shifting the modes. We talked about that in the election, modal shifting. Which is getting people out of cars and into other transportation options.
Yeah.
I think Sonia has taken the Mill Bay Ferry across and biked in to the legislature, and it almost took the same amount of time as if she drove.
Yep.
So that speaks to the issue. Josie Byington, another ferry option could be the Nanaimo to Swartz Bay for another lengthy closure on the Malahat. I think we heard a lot about this on the Gulf Islands, about the flexibility of BC ferries, right?
Yeah.
The ability to throw another ferry on, they just don't have the boats sitting around in the capacity to just throw another ferry on when that happens, which is a bit of a problem, I think. And actually, if you think about it, the Mill Bay, Brentwood Bay route would be perfect for one of the electric ferries, which is another thing that I've been talking about.
Yeah, that would be great. It would pollute less, and it would fill in a gap that's, I think, we've identified pretty clearly in terms of connecting the peninsula and Cowichan Valley. And
maybe you could run them more often. Maybe even treat them rather than a bridge, as was talked about, or even a passenger ferry service where maybe you run them like the interior ferry service, where you can it's part of it is a highway, and they just run on a regular basis. It takes 20 minutes or something to get across.
The Nakusp ferry is gorgeous.
That's right. Do you know that the company that is building the batteries for that Norwegian electric ferry, do you know where they're located?
No.
They're located, you think, they're located in Norway. No, they're not. They're located in Richmond. So I put a Facebook post, some of you might remember this last week, where I said, by the way, we have a ferry service here. By the way, it might be something that we want to look into. I know that we're looking into diesel electric hybrids, but the number of times that I've run into the situation where there's a BC company building a technology for another jurisdiction because British Columbia just simply isn't, frankly, that friendly to innovation or adopting our own innovation. We're very friendly to innovating. We got great innovators.
Yeah.
But we don't adopt our own innovations.
Yeah, it gets shopped out somewhere else. Well, even Washington's talking about electrifying their ferry system right now.
Yeah, why? Do you remember what you read the article? Do you remember what the excuses were for why they're doing it?
No.
There's two.
It's not
one, to decrease greenhouse gas emissions, and two, to decrease the costs of their because fossil fuel consumption is going up.
Yep, prices are going up every day.
Those seem like very good reasons for us to start to look at them.
Yeah.
Again, it gets pretty exhausting continually saying Why are we following leaders? Why are we not leading? Anyway, we keep pushing that. So
now, I've noticed we tend to go, when you and I are on here, we go a little over. So
well, we're going a lot over.
Yeah.
Already.
It's because we talk so much. We're both talkers.
Well, it's comfortable.
It's good.
Does everyone like that? Well, I guess, what about this new setup that we've got? It's pretty cool, eh? That's how you can get a hold of us, right there on the screen.
No.
Also, just like TV, there's a little logo down in the corner.
Technology.
Alex Pope, another.
Hi, Alex.
Another battery company. Yeah. Well, hey, look, nothing wrong with the innovation here in British Columbia.
We have great innovators.
It's just our adoption. Okay, so we have one more, pretty quick.
Yep. You have a new role.
It's true.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about you've been appointed to the Rental Housing Task Force.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is probably a whole
we'll probably come back to
episode
it
all
again.
on its own. Well, we will. There's going to be some announcements coming up.
Yep.
The announcement already happened. We're starting to have conversations with people who are in the rental housing field. It's a fascinating conversation, really. As I'm on this task force with Spencer Shander Herbert and Ronna Ray Leonard, and as Spencer says, both NDP. It's a bipartisan task force. The goal is to take a look at the Residential Tenancy Act and make suggestions, make recommendations to the Premier and to the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, how to improve things for renters and for landlords. And it's a complex challenge. It's 1.5 million renters, which means there's not that at least many landlords, but there's many landlords in the province as well. And it's an exercise in networks and relationship building. Yeah. You rent.
I do. Yeah.
You rely on rent. What do you have big visions of owning your own home, or are you what's your long-term goal?
Yeah, so I'd love to own my own home one day. For the time, I've rented since I moved out of my parents' house, and I've had great landlords. I've had challenging landlords. I've had challenging roommates. I would love at some point to have my own space, and what I actually really want is a place that I can sort of do things like. So right now, I need permission to paint my room, or I need permission to do any type of renovations. And that's always a tricky balance, because I have a vision of how the house I want to live in and how I want it to look, and what would suit the I want things like I want sort of a media center where I can watch TV, and I want an entertainment area where I can have guests over, and we'd have to remodel our living room to make that happen, and I don't have a dining room right now. And then I want a garden, and currently I have a gorgeous garden, but it's my landlord's, and she's done all her things, and if I want to plant vegetables, then I need to find space within what she's already done. So I kind of have my dream of the space that I want to have, and I can do that as a rental. I just need to negotiate with someone how I can make that space happen. Whereas some people don't have that freedom with their landlords. Maybe they have a company that has very stringent rules. Maybe they're in a strata that has a very, very strict way of doing things. And so that's not really what I want, because I want to live in my space. It doesn't need to be big. It could be 3 rooms. But I want to craft my space to be my space. And I think that's one of the challenges that renters face, is they don't feel like their home is their own. They feel like their home is someone else's.
Well, we fall into the trap of calling homes housing units. In government, we're going to build, you heard the government say 114,000 units. Yeah. Units. I worked in on-reserve housing, and we often heard CMHC talk about units. We're amazing at building units. We're not incredibly amazing at building homes, and people say, "Oh, this politician is in, semantics. It's all semantics." It's not semantics. There's a big difference between a housing unit, a very institutional, administrative kind of. It's functional. Yeah. A housing unit is functional, but as you pointed out, all of those things that you pointed out were about home.
Yeah.
creating home. And to a certain extent, I would argue you probably have made it home.
Yeah, I'm lucky enough to have a great landlord that's very open, and she and I now we work in the garden together. We'll go out in the backyard and start working, and she's I have a great landlord. That's luck, and relationship building.
Yeah, luck. Perhaps you've earned it, and perhaps you both help each other out. I mean, I think that part of what we've come to in our modern society is very much a liability, very much a legal relationship.
Yeah.
And I think that's what this if I'm just don't get too in depth, because we're still hearing a lot. There's a lot of battle lines that are being drawn in the input that we've been hearing from the organizations. They're very clear what the battle lines are. I'll get into them later. Not today. I'll get into them as we proceed. We're going to be opening it up and asking people to come in and talk to them. But what it comes down to for me is the more we rely on law, on the Residential Tenancy Act, and the ability for us to take something to arbitration or do this or do that, and the less we focus on the relationship side of it, relating well with one another, again, this is not pie in the sky stuff. This is really important on the ground stuff that I think that we have to try to find a way to balance the legal with the interhuman, the relational piece, the personal piece. That's right. So we'll continue that conversation. I do want to circle back around. Lindy Lou has been providing some very anybody who's interested in the transportation conversation that we are in might want to circle back around, because Lindy Lou's been providing a lot of good comments. I'll jump on that a little later on tonight and make some responses. Thank you, Lindy. Thank you, Alex and Judy. Judy Feinstein. Hello, Judy. We'll be seeing you hopefully soon, Judy. Mm-hmm. Anyway, we're well over 31 minutes. Yep. It's a good thing that Aldous is on the airline, because otherwise steam would be coming from his ears and he'd say, you gotta keep it shorter. Anyway, thank you for watching this episode. Any last words that you'd like to drop in? Old growth, transportation, housing.
Thanks for having me on. And thanks to I interact with people often through email or over the phone, so I don't get a chance to see people. And so I kind of want to say thank you to all the people who contact our office. I actually, as much as there's the odd person who's upset, I have great interactions with a lot of people daily. Even the people who are upset, actually, I tend to have great interactions with them, just because they're upset for a good reason, and I like to hear that. So just a thank you to all the people who reach out to our office and who I interact with, who I don't necessarily get a chance to actually see, but I appreciate a lot of the conversations that I have here, and I learn a lot from people. So thank you to everybody.
So part of this is part of ensuring that yourself and all this come on Friday afternoons is to let people know that this is a team operation, that I'm given both credit and blame because I'm the public face of it. I'm officially the representative. I have the ability to stand up in the legislature and speak, and that's an incredible honor to represent this place. But I would not be nearly as successful as I am without the amazing people, Ryan here and Aldous, who work in this office, Laura, who works in our office, our volunteers, our contractors, people we bring in to help produce all of the materials so that we can be successful in communicating. So part of the reason why we've set this up is because it's important that we give people an opportunity to see that this is a real human being.
I'm people.
He's a people. He has an incredible. Ryan has an incredible passion for BC politics, for local politics, for our community, and works incredibly hard on behalf of all of the constituents. And so, whether you're agreeing with what it is that I'm doing in the legislature, or what it is that we're doing as a team, know that you've got one heck of an advocate here in Saanich North and the Islands. So thank you for what you do. You can get a hold of us. The graphic shows my email address, adam.olsen.mla@ledge.bc.ca. You can call Ryan at 250-655-5600. You can also check out all the work that we do, www.adamolsen.ca. All the work that we've done in this spring legislative session, which ends next week, by the way. Next Friday will be a big spring session wrap-up show.
Lots to say on that,
I guess. Yeah, we have a lot to say. So until next week, thank you very much for joining us this week. Next Friday, 4:30, same time, same place. We look forward to seeing you then. So, Ryan, have a great weekend. Everybody have a great weekend. Till next week. Hayagwa.